Same old game.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 669 for January 4th, 2026, and I'm Jaded Duran.
And I'm Brennan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope everyone had a great New Year's, a great holiday season. The world has turned the page to 2026. However, as we noted last week, we at InSession Film have not quite turned the corner quite yet because
missed it by that much.
We still have another week until the InSession Film Awards. That will be happening next week. So this is our last episode of our 2025 campaign before we get to the awards show next week. We do have a couple of reviews coming out this week as well. So there are going to be two last reviews that we'll get to. We're going to be going over Kristen Stewart's directorial debut, The Chronology of Water, which debuted at Cannes? It was one of the festivals. Maybe it was in the fall. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was the Cannes Film Festival, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that is the case. So we're going to be talking about that film, and we're also going to be talking about the Tunisian film, The Voice of Henry Jam, which was getting a lot of praise and buzz earlier in the year during the festival circuit as well. So we are going to round out our 2025 campaign with those two reviews. We did have Bygone's Resurrection on the docket. However, Brendan was not able to drive 2 hours to New Jersey to see the film, unfortunately. As much as
Why did it have to be in New Jersey?
I don't know.
We always have a few blind spots. Every year when it comes to the InSession Film Awards, there's always a few films that we don't get a chance to see, but we always try to see the biggies, the ones that we know we have to prioritize. Sadly, I think I'm going to have one of those biggie miss spots for me, and it's going to be Bygone's Resurrection.
I know. It's really unfortunate. I saw that they were expanding that film, and I immediately went to the list. I could not believe that Philadelphia was not on the list. It feels like a big enough market that if you're going to expand a movie, that's where it would go. But no, wasn't on the list.
It's because they know I have to see it, so that's why they didn't do that.
I know, really unfortunate. So we won't have a review of that film, but because this is our last show before the award show next week, I will give some brief thoughts on it here as we're going to do some catch up before we get to the top five, much like we did last week. The structure of this week's show is going to be the exact same formula as last week. We're going to talk about some movies up front here that we've recently caught up with as we are ending our 2025 homework. And then we will finish off our top 10 scenes of the year. Of course, this week we will be going through our number 5 through number 1 picks. And I very much look forward to getting into that.
How much crossover are we going to have on these?
I don't know. It was funny that we had an exact crossover last time.
I think there's going to be more. I think there's going to be more this time. Yeah,
there could be for sure. I think of at least one, maybe two scenes that will cross over on. At least one. I can say pretty confidently. Before we get to the top 5, though, we do have some movies that we wanted to talk about here real quickly. Brendan, where do you want to start? I think there are 2 on your list that cross over with me that I've seen as well.
Yes. And I know you've given some thoughts on these movies already, so I guess this would be more me having the floor. I was hoping to squeeze in a third one. I will admit I'm maybe about a third of the way through the documentary Come See Me in the Good Light. I just haven't had a chance to finish that yet. I was I'm enjoying it so far. I was hoping to have that one finished for this particular catch-up segment of this episode, but I'll at least have that done before the award show so I can at least acknowledge if it does fit within my top 5 favorite documentaries of the year. And based on the way it's going, it most likely is going to. So I'll just give that as like an early thought on one film that I will finish by the time the week is over.
Okay.
I guess I'll start with, and I know you talked about a film called Good Boy some time ago, and it's a film
Mhm.
and it's a film I actually had finally seen maybe about over a month ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I just never got the chance to give my thoughts on it in some catch-up format. I guess it's because we just had a few other movies that we wanted to prioritize our thoughts on. I did like this movie. I know you had some pretty high praises for it as well, especially for
Yeah.
Indy the dog.
Yeah.
And
Indy.
he's
the
a good
best.
boy. He's truly a good boy.
He is a good boy.
Yeah. And I will say, I think what's interesting about this movie, especially given the fact that we have so many horror movies these days that are essentially about trauma in some way, I found this angle of it really intriguing. I mean, this one's more about learning to embrace life and not to dwell on death as an idea. But I love that it's from the perspective of a dog. It could have been one of the biggest cheap shots of the year, but it's not. Like I actually think it's pretty effective as a symbolic idea in that regard. I don't know if the film itself always works to justify its runtime. It's an 80-ish minute movie, maybe less than that. So it's not a very long movie, but sometimes it did feel like a short film stretched a little bit thin for me. But I will say there are some pretty clever tricks with the camera that I found really neat. I found some of those sequences quite alluring. And as I said, Indy is maybe in the mid to upper tier of dog performances that we've ever seen. Pretty good stuff, we'll simply say. I thought he was quite good here.
Yeah, I loved Indy. I thought he was really great. I think he's maybe the best thing about this film. As I noted some weeks ago, whenever we first brought this up, I do think the gimmick here is quite interesting and mostly effective. And it's funny, we're recording this the night that the Critics' Choice Awards are on.
I know, we're seeing a lot of cool winners as we're recording this.
And typically, I do not like what I'm about to do. And that is, I'm going to bring up a film to essentially enhance another film. It's a tactic that I typically do not like all that much. But since the film won an award, I figured, why not bring it up? Look, we've turned art into sports. I'm just going to use it to my advantage in this case. Might as well. Because Critics' Choice, look, we've done some fun things tonight. The show is still going on. I don't know who won Best Actor or Actress or Best Film at this point. However, we did find out that F1 won for Best Editing. And that is one of the most baffling
that makes no sense to me
of the last decade.
That makes no sense to me.
Makes no sense to me. F1 is the most, it's okay, movie I feel like Critics' Choice has pushed over God knows how long.
That in a way, it kind of feels like they needed to give some blockbuster film that's very competently made and big and grand some type of technical award.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And it's almost as if every other technical award, whether it be cinematography, visual effects, or something like that, had a clear other winner that maybe didn't fit within the grand scheme of things like that. So this almost felt like an obligatory, we need to honor some type of summer blockbuster somewhere. That's what it felt like to me.
I don't understand the choice at all. Look, sound, okay.
That makes sense. That makes way more sense than editing.
Sound, I totally get. Cinematography and some of these other awards, I just think is kind of crazy. I guess visual effects, if you want to include visual effects. Of course, Avatar was always going to win that award.
Sure.
So it being nominated there, whatever.
That's part of James Cameron's contract. Whenever he makes an Avatar film, it's going to win Best Visual Effects.
Yeah. Look, F1 is okay. It's fine. There's a lot of fun to be had. I really like Hans Zimmer's score. I don't think it's one of the top 5 of the year, but it's really fun. I do like it quite a bit. The soundtrack in general is really fun. But the reason I bring up F1 here, not to just dog on it. No pun intended, I guess.
I was just gonna say,
or pun intended.
Did you
I don't
play?
know.
Did you plan that?
I did it. I do think it is a competently well-made film, and it's a fine movie. It's certainly better than some of the blockbusters we got last year. But best editing, come on, that's a joke. What are we doing here? And again, I bring that up to say I would nominate Good Boy over F1 for editing. I think some of the editing in Good Boy is actually quite clever and distinctive because, again, it's a gimmick we haven't really seen before. There's a dream nightmare sequence that takes place 2/3 of the way through this film that is just simply one of the most unique moments of 2025.
That's
really,
very
really great.
effective. Is that the same one that mostly takes place outside in the rain? Is that the one you're thinking of? There's a shot and an edit outside in the rain where something in the background just completely changes to something else.
Well, the doghouse sequence, was going to be the next one I bring up. And that's the one that takes place outside in the rain. And that one is equally effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some really good editing in Good Boy that I think 100 times better than anything we see in F1 in that regard.
Yeah, that's fair.
And again, I'm not
fair
saying Good Boy should be nominated either. But I do think in terms of the two, that's the one that if that's the quote unquote genre movie they were going to go with, I much prefer Good Boy to F1 in that regard. But anyway, I say all of that to say it's not perfect. I agree with you. It's not entirely perfect, but I think given what this is and given that your lead actor is an animal, I think it does a really great job of taking advantage of that to create something that is distinctive and clever and fun and engaging. And I was moved in the end. Yeah.
For the most part, it is more than just its gimmick, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's Good Boy.
Good Boy.
Moving on from that, and for the next one, we'll try to avoid any further tangents, but you also got a chance to see The Plague, I believe.
I did, yes. I saw this a few days ago. I did log in on Letterboxd. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see what I had logged.
I haven't. No, I have not. I don't know anything as far as your rating or your thoughts on this one.
Interesting. I know you weren't the biggest fan of this one, and I know a lot of people are going for this one. I will say this. I, too, was not really the biggest fan of this one.
Gotcha.
Admittedly, I think the film was a little bit redundant for my tastes, but I do like the angle that it's going for. There's one thing about this movie I really did not care for, and I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback for this. I did not like Kalo Martin as the main bully in this. He's the weak link for me.
Wow.
I think,
okay.
And I hate to be critical of young actors, especially at this age, because they're at a different emotional wavelength than more professional actors. And a lot of these young kids are acting for the first time in this movie. And I can only imagine that a young actor like Kylo Martin is going to be given the right role someday. I just don't think this was it. I felt like I was watching a really sweet kid try to be mean. And it's not so much the writing. I actually think the writing of the character of Jake is not the issue. It's more so how he delivers some of those jabs, some of that profanity, the grotesqueness of his dialogue. I felt like I was watching a really sweet, honest, and lovable boy trying to be mean. And I just did not find it convincing. Pretty much everyone else, as far as the young cast is concerned, I did find mostly convincing. I'm not sure if I love the ending of the movie. I think it is a little bit of a cheap shot in some ways, but really, it mostly came down to young Kalo Martin. I didn't find him effective, and I was bummed. I really was. It was about halfway through the movie, I knew going in that there was a lot of hype for one particular performance, and I was thinking, it can't be this one, is it? And it turns out that it was. I was bummed. I really was. It sadly did not work for me. And the thing that everyone seems to really latch on to was maybe my least favorite thing about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting that you and I might share a similar-ish grading, at least based off of what you're saying there in terms of your overall feelings.
Oh, yeah, but we come at a completely different angles.
I think it's hilarious how vastly different, because I could not disagree more. I know.
More. And I know I'm in the minority on this one. Most people seem to think Kalo Martin is actually kind of one of the great finds of 2025.
Oh, I think it's the best villain performance of the decade. maybe of
I
the
think-
last 10 years, let alone just this decade alone. I think
I
it's
love
phenomenal.
you. I love you, JD. I think you're nuts.
I mean, I know that I'm not alone in this, so if
know.
there's anyone here that's crazy, it's not me. I
point,
think he
fair
is unbelievable in this film. I have maybe an issue with Everett Blunk as the lead here. He's the one, and it's maybe a little unfair to say that because he is the lead. He's given the most to do.
Yeah, he has the most
and
challenging
has to
role, for
carry
sure.
this film. So that is always going to be challenging for a young actor. I do think he stumbles in that, especially toward the end of the film.
Okay.
Some of the narrative changes of Ben that we see that he is then convinced, or that he is tasked to convince us with, that Ben would make those choices. I don't think that works from a writing perspective, and it especially doesn't work from a performative standpoint either.
Fair.
Blanc, I do think it gives an uneven performance. I'm not going to be overly critical on him because, again, he's a young actor, and that probably falls more on Charlie Pollinger to bring that out of Blanc ultimately.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
could probably say the
why-
same thing about Kalo Martin as well. If I didn't like the performance, I think it's less to do with maybe that experience and more to do with like how they're being guided. You know, it's a lot of times young actors are really, they need to be mentored more a little bit. And sometimes a great director has not found the ability to do that just yet.
But again, where you and I will just differ is I feel like where Pollinger fails Blanc in that regard, he ultimately is extremely successful with K.O. Martin. I truly believe it's one of the best villain performances we've seen. If you were to tell me that he's just a straight up asshole in real life, I would believe it.
See, I wouldn't.
totally
I
believe
wouldn't
it.
at all.
Yeah, he does not seem like a sweet kid to me. He seems like an absolute bully. And again, I say that extremely complimentary. I hated that character. And I love that I hated that character. I think he does such a
I know what you mean.
phenomenal job of tapping into that. And it is interesting how, like, because he like rides that line of being a total bully, a total asshole, but he doesn't go over the top with it, which I think is so interesting. There is kind of this innocence angle that gives credence to why he's the most popular guy on the team, why everyone looks to him whenever something comes up. And he's always leading the charge as far as the bullying goes. So there is kind of this pulling of the reins at the right time that I do think is quite fascinating. And that to me is one of the more sophisticated elements of his performance that I think is why I give it the weight that I do. It's just not that he's being mean or that he's a bully. Like there's like something behind his eyes where everything is so set up and precise and manufactured. Again, I say that complimentary in terms of what Jake is doing. And I just feel like Martin taps into that impeccably. I mean, he's by far the best thing about that film.
Yeah, it didn't work for me. This was like if Nelly from Petite Maman was given swear words. Like that was the vibe of the performance I was getting.
Oh yeah, I can't wrap my head around that.
It just did not work for me. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it.
Okay. Well, I do agree with you about the ending though. I do think the ending is completely unearned. I don't understand
it's a cheap
what
shot,
that was going
unfortunately.
for. Yeah. All right, so that's The Plague. It is out in theaters right now. Not really for me, but maybe it is for you. Who knows?
A lot of people seem to like it. I'm looking at my those I follow on Letterboxd, and there's a lot of 3.5s, a lot of 4s for this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, take our thoughts with a grain of salt, I guess.
And I will say, I don't want to name anyone specifically, but I have seen a few people that I know reference how accurate this movie feels to maybe some of their own high school experiences. And if you're looking for a movie that maybe does that, I urge you to actually check out some of these critics and maybe be able to speak to that more closely, perhaps more so than maybe we can. And I think if it's tapping into something real for them, then perhaps the movie is doing something right for a lot of people.
Well, and I think that, again, is Martin for most of us. Not for Brendan, but for
Not
most
for
of
me.
us.
Not for me.
For most of us, that's why Martin's performance is so effective, because he brings that honesty to the screen. I thankfully didn't have quite the extremes of bullying that we see here, but I definitely had something of that ilk, and especially in a sports context. So I think there was a lot for me to relate with The Plague. And I think a lot of that is Martin's performance for sure. So I can understand why people are drawn to the film. My criticisms are less so about its honesty, its emotional honesty, its bullying honesty. All of that I think is great.
The filmmaking of it all. And
The
just how
filmmaking and how it all crystallizes, I just don't think it sticks the landing at all.
Fair.
And ultimately it falls apart for me in that regard.
Yep.
All right, a few more before we get to the top 5. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because, spoiler alert, this will come up in some regards next week when we do the InSession Film Awards. But I did briefly want to talk about Bygone's Resurrection. I wish that we had an opportunity to review this, although at the same time, maybe it worked out for the best because I honestly don't know how to really articulate this film. It is extraordinary in terms of the filmmaking, and it's this strikingly beautiful dreamscape about broken people finding healing in dreams and cinema. And essentially what it does is it's this meditation on time and history and the evolution of film. And it takes us through the various generations of cinema, and it's tied to the 5 senses and consciousness as well. And we see all of these different visual languages. So we go from the silent era and German expressionism to noir and romantic melodrama of the 40s and 50s to the new Hollywood era of the 60s and 70s and 80s, and then to modern cinema as the last sequence is this 30-minute one-take vampire sequence that is just incredible. So the film also plays out as this love letter to film history. And again, boiling it down in this, it's egregious to do it this way because there's so much to really dissect. But if I had to boil it down to a simple phrase, it's that it's this film honoring the legacy of cinema and history because its central character is essentially this broken person that is finding healing in cinema and dreaming of it's experiencing cinema in all of its forms and all of its times and eras. And it is quite remarkable. Like it's just one of those movies you have to experience. I don't know if there is a way to articulate it. We can all do our best.
It sounds like my kind of movie, and
No,
I say
it's
this
phenomenal.
I say this as someone who hasn't even seen a trailer for this thing yet. All I have to go off of is that I loved Bygone's last movie, Long Day's Journey into Night.
Yeah.
So the first thing I was going to ask you, and you already answered it, was where is the one take sequence in Resurrection? Because that was
it's at the
essentially the gimmick
Yeah.
of Long Day's Journey into Night. The back half of that movie kind of functioned as its own one take short film in a way.
And that's why he waits until the end here, because again, he's tapping into all of these eras. And where does the one take shot really take center stage? It really is with the modern movement. And so that's where he employs it, where the beginning of the film, it's like the first 20 minutes of this film is a legit silent movie with the title cards on black and the whole thing. The whole thing. It's phenomenal. So you get this silent movie. You move on to, again, the melodrama of the 40s. And that whole train sequence is just phenomenal. And, then you move into like the new Hollywood era. The one take makes the most sense at the end.
Sure.
And it is breathtaking to watch. The cinematography and composition in this film, we're going to talk about best cinematography next week. Obviously, it's one of our categories at the InSession Film Awards.
Right.
And I truly don't understand how there is even a competition this year with the Oscars and the Golden Globes and Critics' Choice. That category should just be, all right, the name is already engraved. like we talked about with Avatar and special effects, like they've already put Cameron's name on the Oscar.
It's part of his contract.
Should be the case here for Resurrection. In terms of cinematography, like it's a laughable competition this year. Like it's Resurrection and then everybody else.
I mean, wasn't everyone
like, it's just that close?
I feel like everyone was saying that in 2018. Was that the year Long Day's Journey into Night came out? Just given that film's gimmick and what Bygone did with that one, I felt like a lot of people were saying, why is cinematography even like up for debate? This movie should at least be in the running. And I think it got like 0 nominations for like anything or something.
And look, it's this small little foreign film and it's gotten absolutely 0 awards love this season. So I'm talking about award season from this purist perspective, as if the Oscars and the Globes and Critics' Choice would even consider a movie like this. It's sad that it's come to this, but it was never going to be in the running at all. But if it was less about politics and marketing and money, and it was just about the art, like it's over.
Just
like,
about letting the quality speak for itself. Yeah, it exists.
That's what it is. And the last thing I'll just note here, a fun little score from M83.
Yeah, that's wild. I had no idea they did the score for this one.
I didn't either, and I tell you what, it's quite good. Let me just put that out there, and I'm just happy to see that once again, because obviously there was the debacle for the Tom Cruise movie in 2013. The name of it is escaping me at the moment.
Oblivion. That movie fell into
Thank
Oblivion.
You. Yes, and of course he was very vocal about the troublesome process with that. And look, I think the score for that film is actually quite good. So despite all of the hurdles, I think
the
it turned out
song,
great.
The song,
and the
is
song,
a
oh
banger.
my gosh, so good. So like, it still worked out in the end. But
did I ever tell you I saw M83 live in Philly when they came by?
Yes, you did. Yeah, because we brought this up before.
And,
yeah,
but they performed Oblivion when I saw them. It was amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned that, which I'm very jealous of. yeah, that it's fantastic. But at the time, he was like, "I'm never doing movies again. That was a nightmare." And I was so sad. Like I was heartbroken. I was like, no. So look, it's been 12 years and I can't remember if there was one in between Oblivion and Resurrection. I'd have to look it up, but just happy to see him back.
As far as credited composer, there's a lot of music videos here, which obviously makes sense for their own or his own material, but as far as movies, full-length feature films, the last one looks to be Oblivion. So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the only other thing I can think of is that he was used quite prominently in the trailer for A Monster Calls, if you remember that.
There were a few
songs.
Yeah. It was I forget the name of the song. But they've used that song a few times in other trailers. Didn't they use that for Cloud Atlas as well? I think that was for that. I think they used that in that trailer as well.
Yeah. The one to A Monster Calls will always register with me because I remember seeing that in the trailer or in the theaters several different times, and I lost it every time. I could not watch that trailer and not.
I remember that we jokingly said it doesn't matter if the movie itself is good or bad because we at least have the trailer as its own form of art now.
It is, yeah, exactly. Oh, just incredible. At any rate, glad to see another score from M83. Very, very good movie. I highly recommend Resurrection when people get a chance to see it. Hopefully, it expands further into your city.
Maybe I'll get
it goes.
Just one day before the award show.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Talk about zero timing.
I mean, I would just, if you can somehow find a way to make it work before the award show, that'd be glorious.
I'll try.
We'll talk about it next week. There's no doubt about that. Okay, real fast. I also want to mention the Lav Diaz film Magellan, starring Gael Garcia Bernal. I saw this on a bunch of critic top 10s, and it's been in my CCA portal for some time. I've been wanting to catch up with it. I finally did get a chance to see it over the last few days, and I don't know if I loved it, but I did really, really like it a lot. But I also say this as a fan of patient cinema. If
Sure.
you are not at all a fan of methodical cinema, just don't even bother. Don't even bother. There are a lot of static shots here that linger on for minutes at a time. And if you don't find that compelling, you're just not going to find much value in this film.
So basically, this is our kind of movie.
I really liked it a lot. And I do think there's a lot of poetry and artistry in those shots, which is why they are there. And so much of why they are extended the way they are, at least in this context, I can't speak to his other movies. I think this might be my first exposure to Love Diaz, although I'm very aware of his reputation.
Sure.
And that he makes movies that are long, that are very patient. In fact, from all accounts, this is actually one of his most accessible movies. And this is already 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That's
so
amazing.
it's much shorter than his usual 4-hour epics. But what I love about Magellan, though, is that it is this movie about the banality of exploration. Of course, we're all familiar with Ferdinand Magellan and what he is known for. And this is very much a biopic in a lot of sense of him going on an expedition somewhere in Southeast Asia. I can't remember exactly where it was initially. He comes back to Portugal. He asks for money to go on the expedition. He gets denied, goes to Spain. We all know the story there. And then he ends up going on his expedition around the world. And as we all know, again, this is history. This is not a spoiler for this movie. He doesn't even make it all the way around. He gets killed about 2/3 of the way around. And so this is about, in so many ways, the banality of that whole process, but also the ego of it all. And even more obvious, the real devastating consequences. So many people died as a result of him deciding to go on this journey. And so the images here play as a backdrop to that in terms of politics and ego and all that sort of stuff. But it's also the backdrop to this almost spiritual warfare of Magellan, who is driven by that hollow ego and wanting to have some sort of legacy. And that's in contrast to others that are either longing for survival, or in the case of a slave that he bought earlier in the film, him longing for his freedom. And that contrast throughout the film, I also think, is quite incredible. Again, that's why we get so many static shots in this film as well. And then when you get to the end, it plays with myth in a fascinating way that's really quite great. And the final scene is extraordinary. Like, again, just continuing that trend of 2025 and remarkable ending scenes. Some I'm sure we'll talk more about once we get to the top 5 here in a moment. And Magellan certainly adds to that in a really fascinating, captivating way.
I also want to see if I have the time to squeeze this one in before we get to our awards show, because the way you describe it and the way I feel like other people have described it, it kind of sounds like people are talking about the 16th century version of Into the Wild in a way, just maybe without the camaraderie of the people that he meets along the way and the joyfulness that sometimes those sequences lead to, because the ego of this historical man, the fact that his selfishness got in the way of other people's lives, essentially, and the film's focus on those surroundings as sort of like this spiritual enlightenment of sorts kind of sounds a lot of like what that movie Into the Wild did back in 2008, just in its own sort of like more modern way, I guess, which means I'm probably going to go for this movie, just given the fact that I not only love long cinema, as people have described this as, but that's a thematic idea that I think I can mess with.
But in a much more cynical, antagonistic way, where Into the Wild, McCandless's journey left an impression on those people, and in the end, you're heartbroken for him, given how that ends. This is very much the antithesis to that.
I mean, I still think he was kind of a selfish kid at the end of that movie still. But maybe that's a different debate we can have. But that's mostly why I brought up the comparison there, because it seems like there's a lot of selfishness that this movie, Magellan, is trying to explore regarding its
and in that case, if that is your interpretation of Into the Wild, then I think there's some parallels to be had there, but on a much more extreme version. Obviously.
Yeah, I can imagine that for sure.
because it's not just Magellan that is, again, spoiler alert, I guess, for history, that is ultimately killed, but so many other people are not only killed because of the journey they go on, but at his own direct hands.
Yeah.
And so, it very much gets into all of that. And, in a captivating way that is very anti-epic in a lot of ways. This is also why I love the methodical approach and these long singular takes, these static shots, because it is actively subverting the traditional Hollywood epic. Even though it plays out like one in many regards, it's much it is not at all interested in the epicness of this particular journey, if that makes sense.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And it's very much about the politics. It's very much about the ego. It's very much about the inhumanity of what's at play. And ultimately, all of these people that are killed, and that includes Portuguese and Spanish, not just these indigenous people that are colonized and killed because of their land. Certainly, all of that is in play, and it's so much about the futility of it. Yeah, and just kind of the that cynical, nihilistic,
just like the emptiness of it. So the beauty of it becomes kind of ironic, but it's meant to focus on how there's such vast nothingness even amidst that beauty.
Pretty much.
No, that sounds like my kind of movie.
Yep. Which is why it is compelling. But again, I think that's why the ending scene is fascinating, because it, in contrast to that, it does end actually in this hopeful spiritual way that's really incredible. So I'm
interesting. Okay.
A lot to like. Again, I don't know if I fully love it, but I respect the hell out of it. Gotcha. And I think it's very effective for what it's going for.
Okay.
So good stuff there. That is Magellan. And then the last one I just want to touch on here real fast. This is a film called Familiar Touch from Sarah Friedland, written and directed by Sarah Friedland, starring Kathleen Chalfant and H. John Benjamin, which a lot of people will know from TV, right? So he's done Bob Burgers and a lot of voice acting over the years. But he is playing the son of our central protagonist here, Ruth, who is older, and she's put into one of those care facilities as she's at the beginning stages of some sort of dementia. The film doesn't specify what her mental state is, just that her son, Steve, is putting her into one of these facilities because her mental state is starting to decline. So that is ultimately the premise of the film. And it's very much a coming of age, a coming of old age, if you will. I think that is how it is even described in the as the premise of this movie. And it's very charming, really endearing. Kathleen Chalfant gives one of the better underseen performances of the year, because so much of this is about her senses, right? Because she's losing her mind. So then touch and taste and smell are heightened a little bit. And she's this former cook, former chef, or someone at least that has experience in those things. I don't know if her career is ever defined here, but we do know that she has a background in cooking, and she talks about it a lot. And it's a big part of her arc in this film. And it's really quite fascinating to see her, as you would expect. At first she's put off by being in this home. She refuses to participate in some ways. And then by the end of the film, there's just this level of acceptance that she has to bargain with, that she has to grapple with. And it leads to this beautiful moment between her and her son that is really quite great. And it's indicative of the poster. I'll just leave it at that. But it's really touching, really, really fun, good little movie that I quite enjoyed.
I've heard some people say this thing is absolutely devastating.
Well, I think it might be. Maybe it's because I just don't have as much experience with
You
this
don't quite
particular
have
material
the
yet.
personal connection to
I don't have the
that,
personal connection, so I wasn't emotionally overwhelmed by this like some others may have been. But I do think it is emotionally stirring, especially those last few scenes are quite good. And while Ruth is central to this film, it's her 90% of the time. There's a moment with Steve near the end as he's looking through a recipe book that is that's the moment that got me the most. Was that, and that's where Benjamin he's in this film for like 2-3 scenes, but he kills it. Like he's really, really good.
This is sometimes we have to really have a good understanding of what it means to be a good supporting performance, and sometimes it just this is where category fraud becomes a completely different talking point that I won't even get to here. But
that's a true supporting performance, and he's very, very good in his 3 scenes. And again, Kathleen Chalfant is extraordinary. She's very, very good here. So yeah, a lot to like. A lot to like with this film. Yeah, I don't think it's going to end up being one of the best films of the year. It's not going to be in my top 20 or anything, but really good movie. And some interesting filmmaking at times, some inspired filmmaking. I feel like I described it in kind of this conventional way, and it doesn't quite play out that way. It's more restrained than maybe how I made it sound initially. So I do think Sarah Friedland shows some composure here as a writer and director.
Okay.
That's worth noting as well.
Good to know.
So yeah, I think that's all I have on my list as far as 2025 catch-up is concerned. Unless you
I think that's all I have. I think that's all I had as well. Like I said, there was one documentary I mentioned there before that I'm hoping to get to, that I was hoping to get to for this episode, but I know I'll have it done by the time we get to our award shows. So it may join the ranks as one of my favorite documentaries of the year. But yeah, that's all I had as well.
The only other thing that I'll mention here real quick, and then we can get to the top 5, because I know we're itching to talk about that. I can't remember if this was last week. In fact, I don't think it was on last week's show, but the week before, going back 2 weeks now.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to mention this as well. I don't know if you've got a chance to see it, but I want to reiterate Masha Shalinsky's. Forgive me, I'm butchering that name. Masha Shalinsky, I think, is the name there. Her film Sound of Falling.
That's on my list. Like
really good.
I'm prioritizing that one for this week. I'm at a point now, since we have 1 week left before we start recording our award show, that basically means if I can fit in a movie a day, that's really going to be my workload there. Sound of Falling will be among those. Like I know that'll be the case.
Yeah, because like Magellan, and it's in a lot of ways it's like a concoction of Resurrection and Magellan, in the sense that there's a lot of filmmaking going on, but it's patient. A lot of it, it's an ode to visual storytelling. It's really, really great. And I think one of the better directed movies of the year. So worth giving it a go.
Yeah, that's on my priority list. In fact, maybe when we get off the air, JD, I'll go through what's on my priority list and ask you if you think I should reshift anything. But I feel pretty good about the movies I have that I'm going to prioritize before we get to the award show itself. But sadly, there will still be some blind spots, but I think enough to certainly be dangerous. A lot of smaller films that either just never made their way to streaming, or especially documentaries. There are quite a few documentaries that I've heard great things about that I don't think I can find anywhere at this point. So yeah, maybe we'll talk about those offline.
Okay. Yeah. Always going to be blind spots, but I feel like I've watched a lot. I feel like I'm mostly prepared, and I'm very excited for next week.
How many movies have you seen thus far? Do you know how many you've logged from 2025?
New films?
Yeah, just new films specifically.
I think I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of like 143, 145, something like that. Especially once we get to next week, because I'll have a few more. I have a few more on my list before we get to next weekend when we do the recording.
My guess is by the time we get to the award show, I'll probably hit around 120. Which is pretty average for me.
Yeah,
that's normally what I hit.
Yeah. So very excited for next week. All right, Brennan, let's talk about some coffee. We love coffee.
We're gonna need a lot of it during our award show next week.
Yeah. Next week I will be probably drinking while we record at least
same.
several different cups of coffee as we go.
Same here. Yeah, we'll have a few stored away just for safekeeping. I might have 3 sitting in front of me.
Exactly.
And of course, when you're drinking that much coffee, it has to taste good, right? It has to be made ethically.
Yes.
It has to be made organically. You need the best.
Exactly. That's why we love Coffee Cult, because they source ethically, they work directly with the farms, and they only get the best coffee.
Yeah.
They only get the top 2% of specialty grade coffees in the world. And they take extra measures to make sure that there are no defects. They're only roasting the best quality beans, and they roast in a specific way that gets the best flavors. So you don't need to add milk and sugar to their coffee. It has incredible flavor notes all on its own. And they have coffee from all over the world. So there's a great variety. Some coffees are heavy with fruity notes or citrus notes. Other coffees are heavy with chocolate notes or caramel notes. Just depends on what you want. They have it all.
Yeah.
If you go to coffeecult.com, coffee with a K, cult with a K, coffeecult.com, at checkout, use our code ISF26, and that is important, ISF26. It is slightly different from last year.
New year.
ISF26, that gets you 15% off at checkout.
Yeah, you need it.
The biggest discount they offer. So you got to go check it out. ISF26, 15% off. That's coffeecult.com, and we thank them for their support. All right, Brandon, let's talk about t-shirts and swag and fun Coffee Cult merch.
A bunch of stuff with our InSession Film logo slapped right on it.
That's right. You can get all kinds of fun things with our logos. I tend to keep promoting some of the newer things that we have up there, but that is a great point, and something I need to keep in mind is that if you just want to get a shirt with our logo on it, or Chasing the Gold, or Women in Session, all of that is available.
Yeah.
But if you want to get different designs, we have, like, I'm wearing our Lester Bangs, True Currency shirt. I've seen a couple of people get these in recent weeks, so that's one of our more popular ones at the moment. But if you're angry about turning art into sports, like I am most of the time, we have that available as well. There's a Midnight Special shirt. What else we have on there? We got a brand new 28 Years Later shirt. You can go and check out. We have a Sinner shirt.
I was just going to say the Sinners one. Yep.
On a One Battle After Another. Hopefully we'll get that up soon as well.
Yeah. So we've got a lot that are current with this specific year, 2025, that movie year specifically. But if you want to go back a little bit further, there's a really great Moonlight / La La Land one that I think is hilarious. So you're going to find some type of design that you're going to love, courtesy of JD Duran over here.
Exactly. And TeePublic / Dashery, that's who we host our store through. They've even added more items, so they have shorts and socks as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a mug or a sticker or magnet, I mean, they have all kinds of fun things. I imagine most of you will go for the t-shirts, but all of that is through TeePublic / Dashery. So if you go to InSessionFilm.dashery.com, there you'll see all of our designs. Click on a design. You'll see all of the products they have for that design. Pick a color, however you want to do it. That's the brilliance of Dashery, is that it's customizable. However you want to utilize our design, it's all up there. InSessionFilm.dashery.com. You can also just go to InSessionFilm.com/store, and there you'll see all of the stuff we have to offer as well. So go and check all of that out. It really helps out the show and keeps this thing going from week to week. So we really do appreciate anything you guys get. Again, that's InSessionFilm.dashery.com, and we thank you for your support. Let's go ahead and transition as we round out our top 10 scenes of the year. Last week, we talked about our top our 10 through 6 picks, and this week we're going to be doing our 5 through 1 picks. Before we get to the top 5, though, do we want to reiterate what our 10 through 6 are in case people misremember, or maybe they didn't even listen to last week? Maybe they're just tuning into the top 5 here. Who knows?
On one hand, I'm like, if you're just tuning in, then I don't want to tell you what they are. But Why not?
But mostly to remind people. I imagine
nice.
most people did listen to last week's
We'll
top
be
5, but just in
nice.
case.
These 2 episodes are 2-parters, so we'll assume that those of you listening now have already listened to episode 668. So my numbers 10 through 6 were at number 10, I had the split diopter shot from The Secret Agent.
Yeah.
At number 9, I had the I Lied to You music sequence from Ryan Coogler's Sinners. At number 8, I had the final one-take sequence from Sentimental Value, the Joachim Trier film. At number 7, I had the hamster scene from If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
Yeah.
And at number 6, I had Aunt Gladys getting her comeuppance at the end of Zach Krieger's Weapons.
Yeah, and Aunt Gladys winning a Critics' Choice tonight for Best Supporting Actress.
As we're recording
so
this,
well.
So
Yeah.
is horror finally going to be represented in some major award category at the Oscars?
Who knows? Should be fun
And,
to see.
and we don't mean horror adjacent. We mean like actual horror film. That's pretty cool to see finally.
It is pretty cool to see. For my 10 through 6, at number 10, I had what I'm dubbing the Genesis 22 moment in Avatar Fire and Ash when Jake takes Spider into the forest for Neytiri to react to. That's my number 10. Number 9, confronting the abuser, and it was just an accident.
Mm-hmm.
At number 8, I also had the ending one-take shot in Sentimental Value. At number 7, I have the final endo match in Japan in Marty Supreme. And then at number 6, I also went to If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, but for me, it was the ending beach scene. That's what I had there at my number 6. Okay. So with that said, let's veer into our top 5 scenes of 2025. Brendan, what do you have at number 5?
All right. So my number 5 is a movie that honestly, I'm kind of surprised I have it this high on this list, but I guess I'm realizing it's one of those movies that has kind of lingered for me. And I know it was really well liked at the time that it came out, but we're not talking about it nearly as much as we were back when it came out. My number 5 scene comes from Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and specifically, I'm actually talking about the satellite scene, which involves
okay.
2 characters, George and Clarissa, played by Michael Fassbender and Marissa Abela, respectively, where they are essentially going off book against MI6 rules to spy on George's wife, played by Cate Blanchett.
Yes.
And this scene is riddled with a lot of tension as to, are these two, this married couple, about to double cross each other? What kind of tension is actually forming here? And George says something to Clarissa along the lines of, if my wife's in trouble, even at her own making, I will do everything in my power to extricate her, no matter what that means. Do you understand? And Clarissa, played by Marissa Abela, responds with what might be one of the greatest lines of dialogue I've heard all year. My God, that's so hot.
Yeah.
Which, again, kind of proves that it is almost underratedly now one of the best written movies of 2025. David Koepp's work there is kind of brilliant. And in a way, this scene does something really intriguing with regard to the spy genre, is that there's almost something kind of fetishistic about the way these spies look out for one another, or quote unquote look out for one another.
Yeah.
There's a lot of James Bond in this movie in a way, because it features a lot of actors that were somehow tied to that franchise, whether it be an actual James Bond, someone who was in a few of the movies, people who may have auditioned for James Bond, someone who's at least rumored to potentially be the next James Bond. And this movie also somehow comments on the sexiness of the Bond formula while also doing something kind of deconstructionistic about it at the same time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it all rolls up into this one scene. So there's something weirdly kind of timely about this scene and how it's playing with genre formula and genre tropes in a way that kind of makes the film a little underrated for me now, because we're not really talking about it nearly as much as we were back when it came out in, what was that, March, April, somewhere around that time frame. But we're talking a lot more now about movies that came out in the tail end of the year, and I get that, rightfully so. These were very direct awards players.
Sure.
But I think in a way, this scene kind of proves, I think, that this film is a little bit on the underrated camp in a way. There's something very efficient and tight about this movie, and it has stuck with me. It really has, and this scene's a great example why.
Yep, I love this moment. This is a great honorable mention. I also have written down here the 2 dinner scenes. I guess one's a fake dinner at the
Oh,
end
yeah,
of
the
film.
one at
They
the end.
invite them
where-
over for dinner,
I-
but then
and
it becomes a game.
I love the way that Cape Blanchett reveals, I never told you all the title of the game. Who grabs the gun?
Yeah, it's great.
There are a
Really,
bunch of
really
there
love
are
that.
some line drops in this movie that are just they feel like fist in the air moments
Yeah.
in a way.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, the
yeah.
writing here is fantastic, and the performances are extraordinary as well in terms of playing into the mystery and how it all unravels. It's just fantastic. But yeah, that satellite scene is quite remarkable as well. That's certainly one of the nice gems of that moment. I do really love that as well. Great movie. And I've seen that movie pop up in a bunch of top 10, top 20 lists over the last few weeks. So I love that Soderbergh hasn't been forgotten, at least for some of us.
Yeah,
which I do really love.
almost had 3 films this year. I guess technically had 3 films, but we haven't seen the Christophers, and I guess that hasn't gone wide yet.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. I love it when Soderbergh can come out with a whole trifecta in a given year.
Mm-hmm.
My number 5, I'm going to lose some people here, and that's perfectly okay. But this is where we get to the hashtag JD Tears moment of the top 10, because I am going with the ending scene to Chloe Zhao's Hamnet.
Okay.
And again, it's just one of those moments I cannot begin to articulate the emotional punch that this was for me on that first, and let's be honest, only watch I will probably ever have of that movie. And I love the recontextualization that we see here. Even if it's invented for the film, I deeply love how those ending moments recontextualize what Hamlet means for William Shakespeare as this means of coping. Because on one hand, he's obviously devastated to lose his son. And to make matters worse, we see that he has become distant from his wife, Anne. So art becomes his only outlet, his only way to articulate all of these complicated emotions that are swirling in him, which is so fascinating because the film doesn't remold Hamlet into something that fits this story. I know there's a lot of debate on that, but I will die on that hill. On its face, it doesn't seem to reflect the events of Hamlet, but Hamlet being one of Shakespeare's most interpreted plays, I do think it's easy to see how you could take certain sections of it and apply it to Shakespeare's grief. And this is what makes art so vital in our lives, and especially to the artists who create such vivid emotional art, because there's that scene earlier in the film where William tells Anne that he's still in disbelief, that it's like he's lost, that speaking of Hamlet, that he's lost and that they're searching for him.
Yeah.
But he's just lost and maybe they can find him. That's what he, more or less what he says there.
Yeah.
We can find him. He's just lost. They don't understand. And Anne mutters something to the effect of, well, he can't have just vanished. So there is this purgatory of sorts with William and Anne, which is what I love about those visuals here and why they're so evocative, because it's indicative of that idea that Hamlet is in some space in between life and death. That's where William is looking for him, and it's where Hamlet is born out of. He won't be able to find him in the real world, but he can find his son in the art, and it becomes so deeply personal to him, which is why, and again, I know there's debate here, but it's why his to be or not to be moment here, I do think is really devastating.
Yeah, I don't mind that. It's good.
It's not just a cameo. It is William lost in his grief that he considers mimicking Hamlet. And this is important. I feel like this gets lost in the conversation a lot. It is Shakespeare mimicking the character of Hamlet as he stands there on the edge of the cliff. So I do think that purpose is actually quite obvious. I don't understand that specific debate. And it's also, William becoming a character in the play where he gets to have a one-on-one moment with Hamlet, finally getting closure as he gets to say goodbye there on the stage, since he wasn't there when it happened. something that I do think is really poignant on its own terms, but even more provocative given that Anne had no idea that William was writing this tragedy.
Yeah.
She was blindsided by it and almost didn't know how to respond. I absolutely love how in those final scenes, they are both deeply impacted by the art on an individual basis, because Anne also gets to have her own one-on-one interaction with the character of Hamlet, reaching her hand out to the actor there on the stage. But despite their distancing of each other, it also becomes a moment in mutual catharsis. When Anne quietly whispers, "Look at me," and Will turns around, it's just simply gut-wrenching there. Yeah. And then you get that final shot of Hamnet, the son, there again in this purgatory-like visual, kind of looking out at his mother and father before he kind of turns away and walks into the darkness there. And it is striking. Like as far as reinterpreting art, and again, I personally don't quite understand the debate around interpretation. I understand that Hamlet, it certainly has a lot of comedy to it. It doesn't on its face feel like it's born out of grief, but I do think there are certainly places where you can make that interpretation. And this film takes that and does something I think quite magical with it in terms of grief and how art can become this coping mechanism. And the last thing I'll say, because I know I'm rambling on kind of long here, and this is where it's going to be hard for me to keep it together.
Oh, JD's going to JD tier it. I love it.
Yes. I thought about bringing this up at the beginning of the show, but it felt more appropriate to save it for this moment. So I was lucky enough to get the vinyl of the score.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yes. And I was listening to it. The other day, and the vinyl player we have is on one of our main counters. It's actually by our children's playroom area. And Andrew, my youngest, decided that he wanted to turn it on. Now, he doesn't know what vinyl is on the player, but I do, because I was listening to it just the other day. And no, I'm not talking about the one score track that we all know for Max Richter. That's a whole nother thing.
That's all. Yeah. Do not
now.
Open up the nature of daylight worms.
Yeah, because, and let me reiterate too, there's a reason I didn't bring up On the Nature of Daylight in any of this.
Yeah.
And to why it's great. I did not mention that at all. That track that kind of takes us out is 1/1000th of that whole sequence. To me, it is last on the list as to why it's effective, and not at all indicative of this story anyway, or it has nothing to do with this story. But since it plays at the end, I thought I would just throw that caveat out there. Okay. Anyway, I pick up Andrew. He cranks it. He turns it on, and all he hears is music. So he is smiling and he's happy and I have him in my arms. I don't know how else to describe this for the audio listeners out there, but I have picked him up. He's in my arms. We are chest to chest, and he is just having fun listening to music. He has no clue what the music is or the context behind it.
Right.
But I do. And it's one of those great original Max Richter tracks from this film. Again, 99% of
which
this
are really good.
Score,
they're really good,
which is fantastic. And that you get one of those tracks playing, and of course, it's deeply emotional. And Andrew, and I cannot make this up. It sounds like I'm making this up. I promise you, I'm not making this up at all. Andrew, he takes his two little hands and wraps his arms around my neck, hugs me for what felt like forever. It might as well have been forever from my perspective of it. And then grabs my face and gives me a kiss.
Oh, God.
As this score is playing on the vinyl next to us.
And we never saw JD again.
I might as well have died on the spot. Like, I was in heaven. It was just one of those unforgettable, I couldn't have manufactured that moment at all. That was all Andrew. He's the one that wanted to turn it on. He's the one that hugged me. He's the one that kissed me. And now I got Hamnet, the movie, playing in my mind as he's doing this. And of course, I am sobbing.
Yeah, you're never gonna forget that.
Like, just.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying this is gonna happen for you, but these types of experiences are when new favorite movies come about, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna remember this for the rest of your life.
And it's why I will champion that Max Richter score. One track does not define that score. It's really, really, really good. And it slays me. And I'm grateful to Andrew for reminding me of why.
That's and that whole ending's a good scene. I think it's a good scene. I don't want to get too down the nature of Daylight rabbit hole, but it didn't bother me that much in the moment either. Would I have preferred maybe an original track instead of it? Probably. Yeah, I think I would have. But I'm not going to say that particular needle drop it didn't deflate the movie. I'll simply say that for me. And I do think the scene is very effective. I actually had a few from Hamnet in my honorable mentions, one of them being this scene, also the scenes between Hamnet and his twin sister Judith. I thought those scenes were really quite great. Were probably some of my favorite moments of the film as well, because I think Jacoby Juke probably gives the performance of the film for me. I think he is quite terrific. And honestly, the movie kind of falls apart without that type of performance from that child actor really establishing why we need to care about the circumstances that come about involving him. Like he has to establish that.
Yeah, he's phenomenal in that film. I love the performances all around, but he's certainly quite incredible, and a big reason as to why that ending is as devastating as it is. But yeah, I love that theme in general, that idea of using art as a coping mechanism. And honestly, I do kind of love that this film invents something, even if I felt the other way around, like Hamlet doesn't seem like it's born out of grief at all. Like, I find that provocative. Like, I find that fascinating.
I do too, because it's kind of an interesting idea that many forms of art or many forms of narrative, any medium, especially ones that were written hundreds of years ago, do we really know how they started out? Many of these myths or stories, legends, whatever, the whole point is that they get twisted and morphed with time.
And who's to say that comedy can't be born out of grief too?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times people use comedy as a way of coping with grief. So, I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen movies utilize that. I mean, this is a bad example because these movies are nothing alike, but a movie like Is This Thing On is all about using comedy as a coping mechanism for some type of trauma or grief, right? So, like that is very much a common psychological reaction to that type of thing.
Yeah, and obviously Hamnet isn't suggesting that it's a comedy or that its comedy was born out of grief, but just in general, maybe there is some truth that Hamlet, even the comedic aspects, were born out of him trying to cope with the death of his son, because we do know there were that part of his life happened. That happened.
So
he certainly was grappling with
whether it bled into the making of the play Hamlet at the time, that's still maybe up for some debate. But I love the idea that some of these things can be reinterpreted as far as what those sources were, because everything happens in that way. Nothing's set in stone.
And Hamnet is obviously focusing on a few slivers of that play to touch into the deep grief that they are experiencing.
Right, exactly.
And having a tangible interaction with the character on stage, which is obviously symbolic for their son. And I find all of that incredible.
I agree.
I love it. All right, that's my number 5. Number 4, what do you got at number 4?
Number 4 will be a very quick explanation from me because it was in your 6 through 10, and that is the final match in Japan for Marty Supreme. Okay. I sort of alluded to this, right? When you had it at, would you have it at number 8? I think it was.
7, I had it at number 7.
Okay. I very cryptically said I might talk about it later, which means, of course, I'm going to talk about it later. So here we are. Admittedly, the scene that moved me more is the final shot against the glass, but that scene doesn't really work without the context of this match. And I feel like, as we talked about last week, that's kind of getting lost in the conversation. The discourse seems to suggest that there's something maybe a bit unearned about that quote unquote growth Marty experiences at the very, very end of the movie. But I think a lot of that growth is suggested in this final match. I think there's a humbleness that Marty has to experience and allow himself to experience, something to give into that absolutely foreshadows the arc that we see crystallize at the end of this movie. I do think there's a through line there. And I think that's what makes this match as thrilling as it is. And as great as that monologue from Kevin O'Leary is about vampires, I think that's an incredible line drop. A lot of it and how it foreshadows the crystallization of Marty's arc and what it means for him at the end. There's a through line there. And I think there's something very important about that. I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. So I just wanted to highlight that once again. I do think this movie is, I will say this. I like that there are some different interpretations about what people think of Marty and how the movie ends. But I think to say that there is nothing earned about the way that ends, I'll simply say this. If you are someone that is a parent or is about to become a parent and you do find that the ending is unearned, I at least want to hear from you why. Because I think I'm very curious about that. But if you don't fall into that category, I'll just simply say, maybe wait until you become a parent. Maybe you might see something a little bit differently about this ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously can't speak for everybody, but
right.
For most of us, becoming a parent changes you. It just does. And it's often like a light switch. You can't express it. You can't articulate it. It's just something that happens. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very indicative of Marty. I think a lot of fathers, a lot of mothers can very much relate with that idea of seeing the child for the very first time, knowing that it's yours, and it just does something in you that you cannot begin to express. It is the literal definition of profundity.
Yep.
It is a profound, life-altering experience. Maybe you're not a crier. Maybe you don't get emotional, but you will in that moment. You will in that moment. And there's nothing that can be said. There's no preparation to be had. It's just something that happens. And I think that's a lot of what's at play there with Marty, in addition to the humbling experience of going to Japan, not being able to compete, having that whole interaction with Endo, as we've been talking about. All of that certainly accumulates to that last moment. So the emotion that had been absent in Marty the entire movie, it just pours out there in that one moment. I think there's a ton of credence to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
where
I can understand. I do understand why a lot of people who are not parents, who haven't had that experience, and that's not to say that you can't emotionally respond if you're not a parent. Of course, a lot of people can simply see the humanity there in Marty, which is also why Chalamet's performance is really great. You can just see the performance, understand the mechanics of what's happening, and empathize with him in that moment. So even though you're not a parent, you can certainly respond to it. But
and it all starts with this final match when he gives into that humbleness and basically fights for something for himself, even knowing that maybe this is the last thing I'll ever do in relation to this sport. I will say, for those who maybe didn't find the actual ending of the movie as earned as they would like, I'm at least willing to listen to those arguments. If someone is saying that he is still a selfish jerk, even when he is praising Endo, saying to him, "You're a great player, I hope you go on to win," that I just don't understand. Like, that's a criticism I do not understand. I feel
don't
like
get it either.
You left to go to the bathroom during that moment. I'm sorry. That's very cynical to say, but I genuinely think that's a misreading of the movie.
Yeah, or people are being purposefully obtuse, which in the age of the internet, that could be a lot of it.
Maybe
people simply wanting to rage bait.
That's so
I do think that's a lot of the social media discourse out there.
It's sad. It's unfortunate, but Anyway, I love that final match. It's my number 4.
I agree. Really love that a lot in my top 10. All right, my number 4, I'm going to a film that's not in my top 10, but I do really like this film a lot, and this scene blew me away. I'm going with the phone call scene in Ryan Johnson's Wake Up Dead Man. And this is, of course...
Pause. It's my number 3.
Well, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so pretty close there. So Brendan has this at number 3, mine number 4. And what I love about this moment is that you have this character of Judd, played wonderfully by Josh O'Connor, who is a man of faith, but he gets caught up in the murder mystery alongside Benoit Blanc. They have to find the source of... They're trying to find this source of information, and they're trying to draw it out of all of these other characters. And, you know, they're struggling. They don't, there's a dead end. They come to a dead end.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, Judd gets this phone call from Luis. Or actually, I think it's vice versa. He calls Luis because he's trying to find out some information because they've hit a dead end.
Yeah.
So let's call her. Let's try to get some information. And that scene is then upended, completely flipped on its head as Luis then begins to become vulnerable with Judd. Her mom is dying, I believe it is, or has cancer or something to that effect. And she just wants to have a moment of prayer and faithful honesty with Judd. And in a moment, he remembers who he is and what he's trying to do and why he's at this church to begin with. And I would have never have guessed in a million years that Wake Up Dead Man would simply become genuinely one of the best movies about faith that I've seen in the last 10 years. And it is truly, truly remarkable how the film plays out in that regard. We talked about it a lot when we reviewed it on the show, but it very much starts with that phone call scene and Judd pausing and remembering what his role really is, why his faith matters, why he is a changed man. He is not an investigator. He's not Benoit Blanc. He is a minister whose calling is to help people through faith. And here is a woman that is in need of faith, is in need of prayer. And for the film to genuinely walk us through that and take its time doing so, I think is nothing short of extraordinary. Really, really incredible. Did not see that coming. I loved it. I was so blown away by that moment in this film. And my number 4 here.
We have to give a lot of props to Bridget Everett as well, who plays
she's
Louise.
Very, very
she
good.
is terrific. This is the definition, once again, of a great supporting performance because it's supporting this particular sequence. I agree with everything that you said. That's why it's my number 3. I just find it so kind of incredible, honestly, to have a commercial movie like this that at least has the topic of religious faith under its belt and actually showcases it as something that people sometimes need. Because we often see movies about religion, religious faith, even in the realm of Catholicism, where a lot of times it's accurately depicted as a bit of a punching bag, right? Like there's something very corrupt about that. And I don't think that's wrong to depict those movies in that way, but it's become very rare to see the other side of that coin, that there actually can be some valid purpose in how religious faith helps people and why they need it in their lives. And I think that's quite beautiful how it's handled. Ryan Johnson's a filmmaker that is very much known for subverting the audience and subverting tropes. That's kind of his shtick, right? That's maybe his number one characteristic, is being very subversive. Sometimes subversive for subversive's sake. He tends to get a little carried away at times. I think that might be maybe my biggest criticism of him. This might be my favorite rug pull that I've ever seen Ryan Johnson do. Yeah, because it actually has an emotional purpose to it. I was genuinely shocked when I saw that. It's really quite beautiful. One of the sweetest moments of the year.
Yeah, it's deeply, deeply gorgeous. I very much agree with you there about that scene. Like I said, my number 4, your number 3. So moving on to my number 3, I will admit these next 3 that I'm about to talk about are a little interchangeable. I could swap them out in any order.
Okay.
I do love them a lot. At number 3, though, I am going with the road scene in One Battle After Another.
Yeah, that's got to be on here. I know.
Yeah, got to be on here. I mean, there are a lot of great moments from this film that you could choose, but I think for a lot of obvious reasons, it's hard not to go with this moment simply because of one, the cinematography and the use of those long lenses is incredible.
It's inventive. It really is.
It really is innovative in that regard. And again, finding that road, the location scouting, just impeccable. That is incredible how they utilize that natural landscape to create this intense, thrilling moment as these cars are chasing after one another. But it's also great because you have this father-daughter dynamic at play as we see throughout the film with Leonardo DiCaprio's Bob character trying to find his daughter clearly in over his head. And I do love that gag throughout the film that he simply doesn't know what he's doing. But he's there. And that's what's great, right? Is that he's there. He just wants to find her. He just wants to keep her safe. And that element of it, I do think is quite visceral, before you get to the actual chase. And once this film went on digital, I feel like one of the first viral moments that people pulled was him speaking Spanish to the guys there on the corner.
That's a good
as
scene.
He's trying to get directions as to what they may or may not have seen, so that way he can go into the right direction. And it's just this brilliant little moment of comedy, but it underneath all of that is this bubbling urgency and emotional fortitude in DiCaprio that's really great because, again, this is a father that is desperate at this point.
Yeah.
And wants to get to his daughter. And Willow, of course, is on the run from these guys that are trying to kill her, as we see throughout the film. So there's that push and pull as well. There's the initial car accident, her hiding on the side of the road. Bob finally comes down to see her. And that intense exchange where she forces him to deliver the code word. And the film had done such a great job earlier to set up that he may or may not know what this code word even is, because he had forgotten the code word through the most important one throughout most of the film. So like that little exchange, I think, is really great as well. And because Willa doesn't know who to trust and not to trust, even though it's her father, and she sees that it's Bob, but she still hesitates. It's just this fascinating little dynamic that I think is just quite powerful. And Paul Thomas Anderson, he's just simply one of the best working today.
He's
and
good at his job. He's really good.
It's such a perfect movie scene too, because of, again, like how immersive it is, going back to the cinematography and the editing of it all. But it's also just full of great emotion and characters that we are rooting for, characters we are rooting against. And it all just plays perfectly with each other. Like every one of those elements are in harmony, and it's brilliant.
And and as you said, there's a lot of emotional drive. No pun intended, driving that scene. Yeah. Actually, there was no pun intended. I just tripped upon that. There are at least 5 scenes from this movie that could be up for debate as being among the best scenes of the year. The one that I almost went with that is an honorable mention of mine is the bank robbery gone wrong in the first third of the movie, and the chase scene that comes about that. And I think a lot of it is because
great sequence.
Teyana Taylor's performance is my pick for the best performance in the movie. Like everything involving her in that first third is the thing that really sticks out to me the most.
Really great.
And the way that scene functions as sort of like an action scene in a way is really quite thrilling. So that almost made my list, but there are many scenes from this movie that function as great honorable mentions for me.
Yep. Good stuff. Love that movie. Number 2. What do you got at number 2?
Number 2, I'm going with Clint Bentley's Train Dreams, and I'm going with the ending of this one. Who would have thought that you told me, oh, there's going to be a great biplane sequence in a movie in 2025? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, Tom Cruise is making Mission Impossible. Nope, it's not that one. It is a different one. It is, of course, the ending of Train Dreams, where now, I guess, elderly Joel Edgerton. Let's just say it's an ending that really capitalizes on the idea of what it means to take it all in, right? I describe this movie as like scrolling through an old family photo album where you're going through the memories of what your family history might be, maybe filling in the gaps of what that story is for these particular individuals. You might not know the full story, but you're kind of inferring what some of those things are, only to then realize that whoever these people were, whether it be in your life or not, made some type of physical imprint in the world around them that eventually lead to some type of historical historical blueprint, right? And that realization for Joel Edgerton in this moment, where everything he may have contributed, and as mundane and small as they may have been, somehow still was a part of shaping the world as it is today. The way he looks upon how technology has shifted, how things he may have done ultimately ended up becoming futile, only to then ironically realize that was necessary for where the world was ultimately going to go. That futility needed to happen. How everything he had touched had left some type of physical imprint. The beauty in those simplicities. That's essentially what this movie is about. It's probably my favorite genre right now, the beauty and the mundane. We always talk about that. And the acceptance of that beauty in this particular sequence, the cinematography and how it's captured. We just saw that this movie won Best Cinematography at the Critics' Choice.
That was a fun surprise.
Yeah, I didn't really expect that. That was a nice little surprise there. So I'm glad we're at least remembering the cinematography for this movie. I hope to God we can keep talking about the score from Bryce Dessner as well, because the way the music swells in that final sequence, I think really, also adds to that beauty. So it's just one of those sequences that made from probably one of my favorite vibes of the entire year. And you know me, JD, I love a good vibe as it pertains to movies. So for those reasons, it is among my scenes of the year. I think it is quite beautiful, and it just left me kind of lingering and thinking as it crystallized. And a great scene ends up doing that for me.
Yeah, I deeply love that scene as well. A great honorable mention for me. Might be my number. Well, I guess we talked about R11 last week on the show, but probably
number 12 now.
13. Yeah, probably my number 12. I really wanted to go with something for Train Dreams as well. I also considered the rain sequence.
That was also really good.
Takes place after that major reveal halfway through the film. Any of the scenes with Arn are great honorable mentions here as well. Love those moments. Really beautiful movie, and I agree with you. Just another impeccable interpretation of magic in the mundane, for sure.
Absolutely.
Deeply love it. Yeah,
best
honorable mention.
Best movie genre.
My number 2, I'm assuming that this is your number 1. When we first started our top 5 here and you asked me, are we going to have any crossover? This was the one that I was anticipating.
Okay.
At number 2 for me, I am going with 28 Years Later. It is the Skull Tower scene that takes place near the end of the film.
Yep. Not on my list. This movie's not on my list.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Of course, this is my number 1.
Okay. I was going to say, I would have been surprised.
I just wanted to see how wide those eyes of yours can open.
I would have been real surprised.
Number 1 is from The Naked Gun.
Yeah. Well, some good moments there for sure.
Yeah. Imagine if I said The Electric State instead. No, of course, my number 1 is this scene from 28 Years Later.
Yeah, I made the mistake of rewatching this while I was at work last week. Oh my God, should have never have done that. Oh my God.
Did someone walk in on you?
Thank God that did not happen, because if someone walked into my office as that was happening, I would have had a lot of explaining to do.
Sure.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is a really, really moving sequence. And it's interesting, right? Because in order to articulate its power, you really have to go back to Dr. Kelson and talk about what this even is, right? Because it's so fascinating that in this world that is obviously full of carnage and death, he has spent his whole life lovingly building a relic dedicated to all the lives that were lost. And from an outside perspective, it is a bit bizarre and grotesque.
Sure.
But as we come to see, in contrast to so much of the village sequences in the first half of the film, Kelson actually has a deeper, more intimate relationship with death, one that is founded in remembrance and honor. The vestige that he builds is full of individuals that deserved to be remembered, that deserved to be grieved, memento mori, if you will. And I do love how Danny Boyle subverts both audience expectation and also Spike's own intentions. It's heartbreaking and ironic, but also poetic and beautiful that because of who Dr. Kelson has become, Spike isn't on a mission to find a cure for his mom. Instead, he's leading her to her death. And there's something really special and profoundly moving about how that crystallizes in this film with this skull tower sequence where she dies and he is given her skull to place on the tower as he climbs up there. And you get that incredible score that's going on there. You would talk about one of the more underrated scores of the year.
Gosh,
underrated everything with this film. It's one of the most underrated movies of the year. Cinematography, editing, the Young Father score.
A few performances that we could probably highlight as well. Yeah,
absolutely. But that Young Father's track that plays underneath this, it is striking. It is so poignant and wonderful. And you couple that with the visuals that are taking place there. And I've just never seen anything like it on screen before. It is a little grotesque, but gorgeously so. And just powerful symbolism that I found gut wrenching and weirdly kind of peaceful. It was a great crystallization too, that story for Spike. And I love it. Deeply love this movie. Love that moment. It is my number 2.
I just didn't see it coming when that moment happened. I was genuinely surprised that a 28 blank later movie was going to go in this type of direction and essentially function as a coming of age film. I was genuinely surprised by that. And I guess I shouldn't have been, because I think I went into the movie knowing that Danny Boyle had said the movie Millions was probably his favorite movie that he has directed, and how it was kind of an inspiration for making 28 Years Later. I should have guessed that there was going to be some type of childhood element to it when we got to that scene. I love the points that you make about how this movie utilizes the grossness of death in an ironic way and sort of twists it and deconstructs it for something new. Because these movies in this genre that the 28 Years Later movies play within are very gross and bloody movies. And this brings a new lens to what that ultimately means and creates probably what I think was one of the great modern movies about what it means for a child to say goodbye to a loved one and learning what that means. And I love the irony that it takes place during a dystopia where people arguably don't have the chance to do that anymore, or perhaps have even forgotten what it means to say goodbye when you're too busy trying to stay alive. I love the way it subverts that type of trope that we normally see in zombie movies specifically, to actually showcase the sad beauty underneath the blood and carnage. That is something I did not expect, and I don't think I can really think of any other movie that has done something like that. And that's why it's my number 1. Because it stands out as one of the most unique and beautiful experiences that, honestly, I think I've had this decade. It's up there for me. This was a rare treat of a movie for me.
Yeah, and I'm with you. That's why I said my top 3 here is a little bit interchangeable, and that moment might as well be a 1B, because I very much feel the same way. It's incredible how subversive it is to that idea of death, and a franchise that is full of death and carnage, not just in this film, but in the entire franchise. And to see this film take that idea and completely flip it on its head as it relates to death and what that means. And I think that's why Kelson is just such a fascinating character to begin with, because every other character here is about survival. Again, going back to that contrast of the village, they're all about survival. They're scared of death. They leave all of that on the fringes of their society, and Kelson is up close and personal to it, completely embracing it. And of course, that leads to that great moment with Spike at the end of the film. Really, really incredible stuff. And again, just the theme of 2025 as it relates to grief. And even though so many of these other films have been from the perspective of a parent losing a child or an adult losing a loved one, this is a child losing a mother.
Motherhood especially has been maybe the most prominent example of that theme that you're talking about. So this becomes sort of the other side of that coin. Like this is the yin to, like, if I had legs, I'd kick you's yang, right? In a way, like it's
why the zombie birth scene is a great honorable mention here, because that very much plays into that central theme as well, where death is giving birth to life.
Yeah.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. All right.
What a movie.
28 years later. Awesome movie. My number one is a film that you've already talked about, so I don't have to spend too much time on this. I believe this was your number 9, if I remember correctly.
Guessing you're talking about a little blues music for your
little
number
blues
1.
music. Yes, I'm going to the world of Ryan Coogler's Sinners. It is the I lied to you moment. I just cannot fathom. Like I would have never have seen something like this coming. Maybe I should have, because Ryan Coogler is brilliant. But watching it unfold, I felt like I was elevating out of my seat. It was transportive in a way that I've just never really experienced before.
Sure.
Somewhat like what we were just talking about with 28 years later. And I just, like, in a movie that is incredibly thoughtful and provocative as it explores assimilation and cultural appropriation and the power of music as a way of healing and bringing communities together. I love how blues acts as a cipher here for those ideas. I find that incredibly poignant given the history of that genre and how it functions as a means of not only expression, but connecting spiritually, which, as this film suggests, gives way to both ancestral and malevolent forces. And it's why the barn burning sequence is so freaking brilliant, because it's this moment of magical realism, this surrealistic dreamscape that fuses past, present, and future generations of music together to tell the history of Black music and how one has informed the other along the way. It transcends time and space. It demonstrates the profundity of music. It is deeply soulful and absolutely stunning in terms of the choreography of it all, how it moves, how it breathes. Again, the fire element and how that's at play as well. It's just, again, unlike anything I've seen before in a film like this. And I was blown away.
This is
blown away.
This is maybe a cynical side of me admitting something I love about this scene as well. And I didn't talk about this when I had at my number 9 on last week's episode. But one thing I also love about this scene is that it truly separates the casual film lovers from just general audiences that don't really look out for certain things. I won't say who, but I have someone in my life who saw this movie and was, for the most part, enjoying it, but had to stop it during this scene because their explanation was, DJs didn't exist at this time. I can't believe this. Why would they do that? And I just laughed and said, you know what? You don't deserve an explanation.
Well, that's the beauty of film language and magical realism. And maybe some people have a hard time putting their heads around that. I think it's quite obvious that it wasn't playing out practically in that way.
Well,
but, sadly, everyone.
Thankfully, this individual is not a family member, so I don't feel bad calling them out in this way. But I couldn't help but laugh. I couldn't help but laugh at that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have too. I think it's quite clear what's going on there, even if all of its nuances are cogent the first time that you watch it, but it is
Right.
just, it's nothing short of brilliant how those different variations of generations, how it comes together to inform how it's all connected to these characters, to the past, present, and future. It's brilliant. And also a shout out to Miles Canton, who also won a Critics' Choice as we are recording tonight for Best Young Actor. He is incredible as Sammy in this film. And
I think it's the best performance in the movie.
Man, the way he sings that song and the way he plays the music there, it is just freaking incredible. It is
I agree.
so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly one of the best music moments of the year for sure. And for me, the scene of the year.
I think that's fair.
But this and 28 Years Later, though, are kind of, again, interchangeable, my 1A and 1B respectively. But both of them, for me, it just simply comes down to, not only was I blown away, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, which we often love to see.
filmmaking.
We see so many movies, so it's hard for us to say that.
All right, I know we have a ton of honorable mentions. Let's try to get through this as quickly as possible.
Okay, so let's
what do you
next
have
2
in
hours.
your-
Let's see how far
I
we can
know.
get through these.
Yes.
I did mention that if I did have a number 11 on last week's episode, it would have been the ending, the final scene and shot specifically of If It Was Just an Accident. That was almost in my list, but just a few others to quickly round this out. The submarine sequence from The Final Reckoning is very thrilling, regardless of what you think of the movie itself, but I think that's a very well executed action sequence.
Yeah.
The final mirror shot from Steven Soderbergh's Presence, I think, is really quite great. I'll also say from the movie Ethos, when Bill the Spaceman Lee wanders in as this nameless picture, really quite ethereal and almost ghostly in its presentation. The beach scene from the animated film Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, was really beautiful for me.
Okay.
Alex's performance with his wife in the crowd and Is This Thing On, and how that crystallizes on the streets of New York, really quite great as well. The way the plan takes shape in No Other Choice, coupled with Sam and Dave's song Hold On, I'm Coming, I think is really quite great too. The performance scene from the Baltimoreans. There's also the split party scene from Twinless, the final scene from The Shrouds. Jennifer Lawrence jumping through a glass door in Die My Love, one of the best jump scares of the past 20 years.
Sure.
Thunderbolts, the Marvel movie, the group being saved by a group hug. The needle drop of firework from Ari Aster's Eddington, the train scene from Highest to Lowest, the snowman love story from The Naked Gun. I'll stop there. There's more we can talk about. I'm sure you have more to talk about there as well, JD, but that's a very small representation of my honorable mentions, at least.
Yeah, totally fair. I'll try to get through these quickly. I noted last week that my number 11 was What It Sounds Like from K-Pop Demon Hunters. I would be remiss, especially since this year has seen the introduction of my son Sam on the show several different times. I know one of his scenes of the year, whether he'll admit this now or not, might be different, because he wants to play it cool. But that boy was obsessed with Your Idol in that film. So I'm going to throw that on here as an honorable mention for his sake. In Resurrection, the con artist sequence, and as I noted earlier, the vampire sequence, that one take shot sequence at the end of the film. Both of those are phenomenal. Good honorable mentions here. The art heist in Mastermind, the Mastermind.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
The film Caught by the Tides, I just put the whole movie because I didn't know what to pick. There's a lot happening there. In No Other Choice, the first victim scene. I also considered the costume party scene and the ending to that film as well. In The Secret Agent, there's the confrontation scene that you mentioned last week.
Yeah.
But also that ending coda, I think, is quite extraordinary as well.
Oh, yeah, with the character of Fernando, I believe his son's name is. Yeah, beautiful stuff.
In the film Hedda, pretty much all of Hedda's scheming, I just threw on there as one broad honorable mention. The ending to Die My Love, I think, is really great. But I also consider the party sequence / the car ride home afterwards in Die My Love. With Hamnet, the other scene that I really considered here is the birth of Judith. Because so much of that film is about life. That is a movie about life as it is as much death, and I think that scene is quintessential to that.
Yeah.
The ending monologue in Sorry Baby, also the courtroom catharsis in Sorry Baby, I have it on here. Sinners, Rocky Road to Dublin. Come on.
Oh,
One of the best music
good
moments
stuff.
of the year.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I love the tender ending to Frankenstein and the friendship scene as we get into the second half of the film, I think is really great in that film as well. The ending scene to Twinless is one that I heavily consider.
Oh,
The
yeah,
hotel
yeah.
scene also quite moving
It's
as
also
well.
good. Yeah.
Trunks and Highest to Lowest.
Oh
Love
gosh,
that
yeah.
movie. Love that moment. How about Charles reveal in The Ballad of Wallace Island? I mean,
Yeah, that's good.
so good. Really, really tender.
Yeah, that's beautiful stuff, man.
The Chris Hansen interview in the documentary Predators.
Okay.
My God, what a moment that is. The ending to Jay Kelly, also the phone call in Jane Kelly, I really like as well. When the dad has to tell his kids what happened in the documentary The Perfect Neighbor.
Wow.
Devastating. Let's see. The Shula father scene in On Becoming a Gunny Fowl very much stood out to me as well. The ending family confrontation at the end of that film is a good honorable mention. The ending to Begonia, wild. I had to throw that on here.
That's a good.
I'm with you on Thunderbolts. Facing Your Demons in the Void is a heavy honorable mention for me. Fantastic Four, The Baby Saving Sue. Really love that as well. And Superman, when Pa Kent tells his son that he's proud of him. Just
Okay.
awesome dad moments. And I
that's
love the
sweet.
ending montage in that film as a result as well.
I'm a punk rocker. Yes, I am.
And the final battle in Predator Badlands. I had to throw on here as well because it's
Still need to
freaking
see that
rules.
one.
Real good. I'll stop there. Obviously, I could keep going on and on and on, but 2025 ended up being a pretty good year. A lot of great scenes.
Had me worried for a bit, and then it
Yep.
got good.
Yep. Totally.
We'll talk more
with you on
about that during the award show.
Yes. So those are our top 10 scenes of 2025. This was really fun. Hopefully people enjoyed this format. If they do, I would like to do this again next year to talk about our top 10 scenes of the year.
Yeah, same.
Really good stuff. All right. I think that'll do it for this week's show. Again, this is it. This is the end of 2025. Next week, it is the InSession Film Awards. So how is that going to work? If you are new to InSession Film, we are going to split next week's episode into two parts. Part one will be the awards section where we talk about the categories.
Yeah.
Best actor, actress, screenplay, cinematography, all of that fun stuff. And then part two will act as best picture, where we will be talking about our top 10 movies of the year. And I very much look forward to getting into that. The great Dave Giannini is going to be back once again. He is going to join us as we break down all of 2025. And I look forward to it. As I noted this week, we have the two reviews, The Chronology of Water and The Voice of Hind Rajab, both of those coming out later on this week. A brand new Chasing the Gold. Shadon is going to be, I think she's going to be predicting the Globes because I think that is happening next weekend.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they are predicting the Globes.
There's a lot happening, and honestly, with
Yes.
the timing of our award show, I think just 1 week later will be the nominations for the Academy Awards
the
as
Oscars,
well.
yep.
So everything's happening all at once, and we love it.
Yep, very much looking forward to that. Shout out to Women in Session who are always doing phenomenal work. There's going to be a new Women in Session at the end of this week as well. So yes, lots going on. Look forward to turning the page to 2026. But, one more. We got the big one next week, episode 670. So be on the lookout for all of that.
670? 670?
670, exactly. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the show, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, however you listen. Please subscribe. Stay up to date. You can follow us on all the social medias out there. InSessionFilm.com is where you can find us. And we have a lot of great writers doing great work as well. Want to shout
absolutely.
them out.
Yeah.
Do appreciate all the great stuff they're doing over there. Brennan, anything else before we get out of here?
Over under, how long is this award show going to be? In totality.
3.5.
Total between parts 1 and part 2?
Yeah, total.
No, it's not.
No?
I think both together will be 7 hours.
Well, I'm trying to be optimistic.
I
Who knows?
love your optimism. If we can get this to be 3.5 hours in total between parts 1 and part 2, man, I will be able to sleep at night so soundly.
I mean, you are right that part 1 alone will probably be 2.5. So it's probably not reasonable, but
Wasn't it 4 hours last year?
yeah, I'd have to go look it up. I'm not sure. If we could just get Dave to be quiet. No, I'm just kidding. It's definitely my fault most of the time.
We all have to be quiet. I think
Yes.
we're all guilty of it. Sadly, we just love movies.
We love
And we like
movies
to
and we love
talk.
celebrating movies. And that's the fun thing with our award show. There's no politics. There's no marketing. There's no campaigning. It's just all pure love and celebration. That's all that it is. So should be a lot of fun. Stay with us.
Absolutely.
We always love it. It's one of my favorite shows we do each and every year. I look forward to it. So with that said, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.